How you folks doing? This is August in Alabama. It's been hot. Normally, you'll catch me in the AC this time of year. You won't catch me out there in the woods. But a friend of mine at work, Dustin Brewer, has been telling me about a spot at Oakmulgee management area where he found a really good buck, jumped it while he was hunting. Been telling me all about this area and wants me to come with him and check it out. He wants to see how I would approach the spot and what I look for when I scout for deer. Normally I don't scout for deer this time of year. I like to try to wait until right after deer season and get in there and bust it wide open, find everything I can while the rut sign's still kind of fresh. Early season, we're going to tackle it a little bit different. We're going to probably stay a little closer to the bottom, a little closer to water, and try to come in from a backwards approach than what I might do if I were scouting it right after deer season. I usually blow right into the bed areas first. So we're going to do a circle around the area and locate the bedding that way. I'm not sure what we'll find, but hopefully it'll be a good trip. Maybe we'll learn something. Good morning. We're at Oakmulgee Wildlife Management Area. Gonna do a little scouting today. Well, for obvious reasons, I won't be showing a whole lot of landmarks. We're scouting a little tract of land way out in the middle of nowhere, and there's a little edge that comes down from the top of a ridge, and you've got this cut over section here. And on the top side of this, you have more open pines, which creates an edge on one side of this clear cut. And on the bottom side, you're getting into a little bit of hardwoods, which creates another edge on the bottom side of this clear cut. So you've got a clear cut going in between pines and hardwoods. And you got a lot of deer, doe activity, hog activity, bedding in that thick stuff right there. And as you swing back around here to the east, it gets into more open pines. These two edges pinch together right here at a section of hardwood trees that are dropping acorns, which is going to create a little bit of a hot spot here for feeding. Because behind me you got bedding, and you got two edges connecting together, almost pointing an arrow at these trees. So right here, if you find these trees dropping, you're going to have a good early season food source. You may catch this buck getting out of his bed early and heading to this food source. It drops off pretty steep. Over there it looks like there's more clear cut. I can't really tell until I get over here. You got a little opening right here, which I don't understand why this little opening's here. Maybe it was a log load landing when they cut this timber, but this little ridge that fingers out through there drops off into the hardwoods. You're going to have a drop off on one side. He said there's a bed out there on that ridge. So if a buck's checking these does in this clear cut area, he's going to be on the downwind side of this doe bedding area. So he could either travel this bottom edge or he could travel that top edge, depending on the wind direction during the rut when he's checking for does. So that's something to think about. We just come into a little draw right here. Got a water oak right there on the edge of that clear cut, and we just jumped a deer. Sounded like a big deer. He said that was the buck that they jumped last time they were down here. Look over here at the camera. Say hi to the camera.
Hey, everybody.
But right here we got a little hardwood bow. We got some enormous white oak down there in the bottom. We got a lot of red oaks and different kinds of acorn trees. Got a beat down trail coming around the top edge of this bow. So you got one long ridge that goes out through there, and then behind us you got one long ridge that's going to continue on out through there. And as you can see, there's a clear cut down there. There's a creek in the bottom of this. So you got food, water, and cover right here, real tight, close proximity. A lot of deer activity right here. In and among these red oaks that are dropping right on the edge of this clear cut. So this is a really good setup. I like this spot. We're probably a couple of 100 yards from that main stage area that we found earlier A lot of buck activity, acorns falling just off of bedding. There's a draw that comes between this clear cut. It's like a little SMZ, you might call it. And there's a lot of activity from one side to the other. What you got is you got clear cuts on both sides of this SMZ. Obviously you got does and bucks traveling back and forth from one side to the other, dropping off in this bottom, feeding on some acorns. A lot of hog activity, rooting going on in this little SMZ. You got a creek drainage behind us. We're going to go down to the creek and just keep working our way down this SMZ, and it's going to open up. From what I can tell, it's going to open up into a real pretty hardwood bottom. Don't knock this place off. You got a really good rub line going up and down through this. So later in the year, I would say, since you got all these deer trails going from one side of the SMZ to the other side, crossing it, you can imagine a big old buck walking up this SMZ, checking all those trails at once, looking for a hot doe. There's a little knob back behind us to the left and to the right. He could bed on either one of them knobs and monitor these does during the rut, and he wouldn't have to look very hard to find one. I'm not really sure which log road we're on, but we've got us a log road right here, and coming down off of this log road at the top of that ridge, there's another road you can drive in from, and you could walk down this little log road right here, and you see these little patches of pines that kind of grow up and create a thickness, and on the other side this log road opens up again. So this is and the woods also open up down there, so this is the thickest area along this whole log road that deer cross. All the deer are crossing right in here within a 40-50 yard stretch of this log road, paralleling the side of a ridge that's mainly open woods, but there's just enough understory out there that'll create safe passage for a deer. And then once you get on this side of the road, you're in the show enough thick stuff, bed habitat again. And they're crossing that creek really wanting to go to the main bedding over there where we just were. So this could potentially be a spot for a bow and arrow, but this is definitely a good rifle stand site, and you'd want to be in the woods just off of this area, so that, because when the deer come up to a road crossing like this, they're really hesitant to cross. They'll stand there, but they'll walk up to that road nonchalant, and you'll hear them coming for a ways, but once they get to the road itself, man, they'll sneak across this thing, and you might not even see them if you ain't paying attention. Some people ask, what is the difference between a doe track and a buck track? Is it the size? I mean, what are you looking at? Well, a buck deer has a different stride than a doe. When a doe steps into her track, her front foot picks up her back foot, literally steps right into the front track, almost looking like one track. When you see a buck track, especially the more mature they get, their back end's a little bit different than their front end, and they have a hard time stepping into that front track with their back leg. So what you see a lot of times is a double track, like this right here. And when you see that double track, that's an indicator that it's a buck deer and not a doe, because does really do have a strong tendency to step in the same track. I want you to tell me what you learned today, if you learned anything at all. What did you learn?
The main things I learned today were stem count and thick cover. That was the main things I learned. I stay away from open woods, more stem count, thick cover, a little bit more about how deer travel. What else I learned? The strides and how a doe and a buck walk.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the main things I learned today.
What did we find today?
We found a pocket, a nice pocket down the end as the SMZ. That's what it's called, SMZ. The brand.
That's two different. What are you calling the pocket? What made it a pocket?
Where it had three. It was like a little spot, and it had three crossings that met together right there at the transition line.
And it was it kind of was an opening inside the thicket.
Yeah.
Made it a little pocket inside the edge of a thicket where all the trails pinched together.
Yeah.
Do you like that spot?
Yeah, I like that spot.
It's got what? Acorns?
Acorns, water, bedding, everything right there.
It's got everything it needs real close. What'd you like about the SMZ? What made it special?
That it was in between thick cover on both sides and all the crossings going across it.
So you got deer going from one side to the other, crossing that SMZ all up and down through there. Which direction did the rud line go?
Up and down it.
Up and down it. You think he's checking for does during the breeding season?
Yeah.
Using crossing all them trails in a small area. What about the stage area? What did you learn about it?
How and where they stage up at.
And why they stage there?
The thick cover for one. I never really understood exactly why they was doing it, but besides it was so thick right there on that spot. But also they had food and water and everything right there in that one area.
How far did that buck bed from there?
15 yards, maybe.
We got him up.
Yeah, we got him up.
We heard him get up and we heard him leave. And that stage area is right on the edge of open timber, but it's still in the thick stuff. How did you identify it as a stage area?
The trails and all the rubs going up by the trees right there.
So you could just stand in one spot and see how many rubs? A bunch.
Yeah, 10.
10, 12
Yeah.
rubs just in one little
Yeah,
small little pocket.
Yeah.
And that's a transition area that they'll use. They'll come out of that bedding. They'll ease up there real slow to that edge, and they'll stay there pretty much till it gets dark.
Yep.
Before they commit to going to that open woods. Now, did all that make sense to you?
Yeah, it did.
Do you see how the trails run both edges to that pocket?
Yeah.
That stage area before they go into the bed area from there?
Yeah.
So they go in and out the same way, or did they go in and out a different way?
A different way.
They come out, they hit the staging area before they go feed, but they go in a different way.
Yeah.
That buck, what's he doing?
Going around, coming back to his bedding area.
He's circling,
Circle.
doing a half circle around his bed area, going back in there. And it's pretty obvious when you start following him that that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
And you see the tracks.
Yeah, you see the tracks.
So you know that's him.
Yep.
I mean, it's just not, you're going out there looking and saying, well, this is what he's doing because I think you're doing it because
You know.
you know. You're following the sign, you're paying attention to what he's doing. And when you scout like that, what do?
You learn more for one, and you ain't just out there blind scouting.
What do you have to do in order to scout like that, though?
One, you gotta find thick cover.
You got to slow down, don't
yeah.
you?
Also, you gotta slow down, real slow, really slow.
You got to get in there and quit walking so fast that you overlook all that.
Yeah, you walk
details.
way slower than I normally do.
Yeah, you really got to pay attention to the details, don't you?
Yeah.
Because you'll walk past that in a heartbeat and never see it.
No, you wouldn't.
What else have you learned today? Anything else?
Let's see, what else I learned today? So, I mean, I would have never walked down that path that we walked down. When we went down that opening where it's open on both sides, I mean, it was open in the middle and you got the clear cut on the left-hand side, clear cut on the right-hand side, I would have never went down there. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I just need to just go off and just see what I find. You know, never worry about, you know, staying kind of on the trail. Just get off of it and just go.
Mm-hmm. But if you want to know where he's going, you got to follow him, don't you? Ignore. I mean, it's good to see all the other deer and the deer sign there. You know what they're doing, which gives you more of an understanding of why he's doing what he's doing. And that one little knob that could turn into what we talked about, a monitor spot, that's during the rut and the rut only. And those deer, those buck deer, will set up in places like that right there to monitor those does during the rut. So you might find early season there's not a lot of sign there, but as season goes on, those rubs and that rub line, scrape line will open up, and you'll notice that he spends a lot more time in there because he's not very far from what?
Water and food.
Everything he needs.
Yeah.
Water, food, cover, escape routes, the whole 9 yards is right there.
Yeah.
And he's at home.
Yeah.
Well, good. You think you're going to kill him?
I hope so.
I hope you do too.
I
Hope you
so.
get in there and put the smack down on him.
I hope so. I really hope so.
My camera's done turned sideways and crooked. I don't know what kind of footage I got of that. May have to cut it off. We'll see.
I learned a lot more than what because I would never, when you went on around the bank, on the hillside, when you went on, you said, let's follow this on out, and you went through them bushes, I would never did that. You know, I would thought like, well, you know, the trail is just gotten really small here. You just went through them, gone. Yeah, you just went through a bunch of stuff. I was like, well, let's go. I was like,
yeah. If it was,
and it worked out. It worked out really well.
If deer season was over, and it was not a lot of leaf activity on the, I mean, it wasn't so green up and everything, and the deer wasn't bedding there, and it's so close to deer season, I would have went in there after deer season. I'd have blowed that deer up out of that bed area, and I'd have searched every inch of it. I'd have walked all them trails and that thick stuff like you're talking about, and I'd have tried to figure out where his main trails going in and out of all that stuff was, and then I'd focus on them come next deer season. And that way I'd have a real good understanding and a good handle on what this deer's doing and why he's doing it. Early season like this, you don't want to go in there and blow them bed areas out. One, it's too thick to walk in there this time of year. I mean, it's tough getting in that mess. Two, you don't want to put too much pressure on them right before you try to hunt them, because you're educating them. The last thing you want to do is educate a deer that he's being hunted. So we bumped him, but it was called a soft bump.
Yeah.
And we let him go off. And we never stopped talking. We continued doing what we were doing. We didn't do anything that would put him on full alert. So he probably just sat over there and listened to us and knew where we were at, and probably kept tabs on us until we left. And then he went back and laid down somewhere. He ain't forgot about us. Later on night, he'll ease out there and he'll sniff around, smell where we walked, and he'll, if he ain't pressured and he ain't got a lot of people hunting him, he'll forget about it in a couple of weeks. But for a couple of weeks, he'll be on alert. You know, it's going to bugger him up for a couple of weeks.
He'll be all right. The season don't start for another month, almost 2 months, really.
He'll be fine. He'll be in there. He done forgot all about that. He thinks he escaped. Everything's fine. His bed area worked for him. He'll come in there and get in that stage area and start eating on them acorns and water oaks all around there. You put an arrow through him. I want you to get him.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, we got to finish this video with a kill. All right, buddy.
All right.